It's a Clark Barrington Show, I guess third edition of the show with BYU's preseason All-American coming off that win against USF. We also look ahead to the game against Baylor and a whole lot more with the Clark Barrington Show.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, your resident BYU insider. Welcome into your only daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. Our goal here, simply stated, is to make you the smartest BYU fans out there. So thank you for making us your first listen of the day. It is time for another edition of the Clark Barrington Show. You can see him on the right there. Clark, thanks again for joining us. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, let's start here. Back from that win over USF, and I want to start with an interesting question. What did you do during the 2.5 hour, severe weather delay?
Yeah, it was an interesting time. At first everybody was kind of just sitting there in the lockers we had and kind of just waiting it out, but as time went on, it got a little bit boring, so we turned on a couple of the other games that were on and started watching those. A couple people brought it up on their phone, and we were watching, the other games that were going on that day, and, trying to kind of let our nerves relax for a little bit, because who knew when we were getting back out on that field. And then, when time came, we refocused and regrouped, and, we're able to go out and play the way we should have, so.
There was a social media post at one point from Mason Wake, and it's just simply said, "We are bored."
Yeah, that is how we were all feeling for sure.
Okay,
there were many loops around the locker room walked in those 2.5 hours. So,
well, hey, I can completely understand it, because you guys, they announced that you guys were going back into the locker room 5 minutes before kickoff. Is that right?
Yeah, we were headed out to do the coin flip, and then right before we stepped on the field, they said, "Hey, there's a lightning delay," and so we turned right back around and walked back into the locker room and waited for another 2.5 hours. So
that's okay. And help me understand the psyche. You mentioned the fact that a bunch of you guys were kind of like, okay, we're staying ready and whatnot in case it's a really quick, 30 minutes, we're right back out there. But then it stretches into 2.5 hours. What is your mindset? You kind of take, like you said, you guys kind of turn on games and whatnot, I guess, to get your mind off it for a minute. But
yeah.
But at the same time, are you trying to keep yourself locked in on what the game plan is, et cetera?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I guess everybody has their own way of doing things, and I wasn't one of the guys to try to lose focus too much, but I think it's a good thing to kind of just get our minds off of it, watch some games. I think there were a couple UFC fights or MMA fights or something on that a couple guys were watching those too, and so just trying to clear our mind, like, hey, the time will come, and when it comes, we've prepared and we'll be ready and we'll refocus. But in the time being, let's just try to get our minds off those things for now. So.
Well, you guys handled it pretty darn well. I think after 2.5 hours, you come out in the very first play from scrimmage, on that fly sweep and takes it to the house. You're out. You're playing left guard. I saw all you guys kind of down blocked and we're kind of sealing off that defensive line. Well, tell me about that play from your perspective.
Honestly, as an O-lineman, we didn't do a whole lot on that play to, make it go all the way. But, our tight ends and running back, I think Chris and I think I want to say it was Dallin and maybe Mason out there on the edge blocking for Puka.
Yeah.
They did a great job, threw some great blocks out there for him to be able to squeeze one down the sideline all the way to the end zone. And, there's no better way to start off a game than that. So, we were just all happy going down and excited to celebrate with them in the end zone. So,
well, okay. And did that in your mind kind of validate, okay, we're legit, we can do this thing, we've got this on lock?
Yeah, for sure. I think not only did it help validate kind of the things we've been thinking about ourselves, but also helped kind of maybe relieve some of the tension, after that 2.5 hour wait. Hey, we went out and scored on the first play. Let's just keep doing it. And so, just helped us to play probably a little more loose and a little more how we wanted to play, right out of the get go. So
Now, that as the game progressed, you guys were up 28-0 at the end of the first quarter. The offense was dominating. Puka had the other rushing touchdown. Then
yeah,
Jaron fires that strike to Keanu Hill. But between those two, you had Max Tooley with the pick six. How fun
yeah,
is that for you as an offensive player to have the defense score once in a while?
man, it was awesome. I told Max that was our best drive of the game, and so it's always good to have a score on the defensive side of the ball, and I'll take one of those any game. So it's always fun to celebrate with them.
Well, it's like a one-play drive for you because you have to go out for
Yeah,
PAT, right? That's it.
yeah. Well, not even anymore. I'm not on PAT anymore, so I'm just there celebrating on the sideline with Max and the rest of the defense. So it was fun.
Oh, hey, yeah, exactly. So that no wonder you said that's the best drive. You're like, hey, you scored for me. I'm good. I'm
Yeah,
good here.
exactly.
Okay, give me your perspective on the overall performance of the offense. How do you think things went? 575 total yards, 314 of those rushing, and that's, I think, as an offensive lineman, that's probably the number you guys are most happy about. And then 50 points. So give me your sense of how you feel the offense performed overall.
Yeah, I think we did a lot of good things, and we did what we know we can do. But there's a lot that we can improve as we have been watching film and going over corrections and things. There's a lot of things that that stood out that we could improve in our game and to get better for this next week. So we're just we're glad we played so well. We're excited to see what comes this next week. So.
And I don't want you don't have to delve too deep into this, but are those improvements like technique stuff, strategy stuff? What exactly? Because 50 points, a lot of people say, well, what do you need to fix? But can you explain what exactly you guys are looking at?
Yeah, some of it's IDs and cleaning up, just who we're getting on, and then a lot of it's technique and all of that stuff as well. And so just cleaning up every aspect of the game, so hopefully it goes better.
All right, Clark, I want to talk to you a little bit about the game this week. Baylor, obviously, you guys faced them last season, so we're going to talk about that. First, I need to get a word in on our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. They're a brand new sponsor here. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Underdog Fantasy, the easiest way to have fun this college football season. The best part about this is it's easy to play, my friends. If you've ever thought about playing fantasy football in the college realm, Underdog Fantasy is the place to do it. You can win cold hard cash in just one single game. They've got investment backing from such luminaries as Mark Cuban, Kevin Durant, Adam Schefter, and more. The best part is you can get in on the action right now. Sign up with the promo code Locked On at Underdog Fantasy, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. Deposit $100, get $100 for free. Once again, go to UnderdogFantasy.com or find the Underdog Fantasy app in the App Store / Google Play Store. And once again, that's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Locked On. Get in on the college football pick'em action today. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Always appreciate you guys checking out the show. Continuing on here with Clark Barrington, BYU offensive lineman. And Clark, Baylor last year, in some ways, I think is a pivot point for the BYU football program. You guys got beat pretty thoroughly on the field. And I've talked with enough of your teammates, and I think you and I even talked about it at one point, that the coaching staff kind of pointed at that game and said, that's kind of what we want. That's what we want to be when we get into the Big 12. Do you feel like that still holds up to this day as you get ready for the rematch?
Yeah, for sure. We were all focused on this game one because it was the first game, right? But I think in the back of our minds, this game has always been one that we've circled, for this season. And a lot of guys on the team, especially me, we've been looking forward to this game. And when we were down there at Baylor, they really did, they kind of manhandled us, up front, and so I think that kind of just left a bad taste in our mouth. And so, we're going to do everything we can to, do better and play the way that we know that we can play. So.
I may have mentioned this to you before on a previous edition, but I had a chance to catch up with Josh Larson, of course, one of the defensive tackles for BYU during training camp. And we had a conversation, and he brought this up unprompted, actually. He said the Baylor game last year, he said he was playing that game at 260 pounds, and he's playing defensive tackle. And he talked about being manhandled in that run game, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think you as an offensive lineman, the defensive line for Baylor did pretty good against y'all. But he talked about the fact that the coaching staff, after that game in particular, said, hey, we need to get bigger. We need to get stronger. We got to be able to go toe to toe with teams like this because that's what we're going to face week in and week out once we get to the 12 here. Is that something that you same message? Well, okay, was it the same messaging you got from the coaching staff?
Yeah, for sure. That the emphasis of getting bigger and stronger and faster, and that's been our emphasis this off season. Included with getting better with technique and all of those things as well. The bigger, the faster, the stronger we can get. The better we can be. So that's been a big emphasis for us.
Apu Ika or Siaki Ika is actually a local product from East High School, actually committed to BYU before going to LSU and now playing at Baylor. You faced him last year. He plays that nose tackle position, 340 pounds. He is just a gigantic human being. Are you looking forward to facing off against him again?
Yeah, for sure. He's a great player, and it'll be a good game, and I'm excited to go toe to toe with him and give him the best I got. So.
With regards to how you guys are approaching this game, I guess, I know that Kalani has preached not being too high or too low with every game, but you already acknowledged the fact that, hey, you guys felt like you got manhandled a year ago. So is there, and they may not be expressed out loud by the coaching staff, by you as a team captain, et cetera, but do you feel like there's a sense around this team that, you know what, we do need to go show Baylor that we were better than we were a year ago?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would say, it's kind of the way you put it, right? Not a ton of spoken word about it, but it's just something that everybody understands. It's in everybody's heads and minds, and we understand that we all are thinking the same thing. And so, let's go out there and give them our best shot. So,
well, sometimes the you don't need to say things, and it just kind of the message is there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so Baylor obviously is a member of the Big 12. BYU's going into the Big 12 next year. When you found out, and I want to go back to last year, right before the season, the official announcement came that the Big 12 had invited BYU to join the Big 12 conference. Your entire career to this point has been being played as an independent, and obviously you've never been a part of a conference race, et cetera, but are you excited to see BYU finally make it to the big time, make it to the Big 12, everything that BYU's worked for over a decade at this point?
Yeah. It's cool. Like you said, I don't know anything different, so I don't know how cool it will be, but it's cool to be in a big conference and competing with those big name teams, and I think it's just our schedule and everything these past couple of years, has helped prepare us for that, and so I think it will be a good time for sure.
Now, you mentioned the fact that you've never known anything different other than independence, and the opportunity for BYU over the years has been able to. You've played all over the country, literally. I think in your 4 or 5 years at BYU, you've probably been to every corner of this country you can probably have ever imagined playing. Is that something that you've really enjoyed? Is just being able to see all these different venues and play all over the country?
Yeah, I think it's way cool. Yeah, I don't know. It's fun to be able to play, a bunch of different teams, and honestly, rarely play, teams twice in back-to-back seasons. So I don't know. There's a give and take. It's fun to be able to travel around, play different teams, but it's always also fun to kind of play the same team back-to-back seasons and continue to beat him or maybe get a revenge game or do whatever, you know what I mean? And just see how much you can improve from one season to the next. So,
Well, and we're going to talk about these games as they come because you do have Utah State and Boise State on the schedule later this fall. But those two schools and then Utah essentially have been the mainstays on the schedule during independence for BYU. Do you truly feel that those games are some of the most important because they are annual rivalry matchups?
I think I think every game's important, of course, but of course we want to win our rivalries as well. And so, there's a big emphasis when it's rivalry week, and we do our best to win every game, but especially those ones. So.
All right, I guess this is like a technique question. This is me being a nerd because I like watching offensive linemen play. I know I'm weird in that way, but I love watching you and Blake Freeland working together, like you combos with Connor Payne. I just like your offensive line. I think is absolutely elite, and the national media has paid attention to that. You guys are top 10 at the worst. I've seen you guys ranked in the top 5 as a unit in different rankings out there. But is there a blocking scheme, whether it's the wide zone, the inside zone? Is there a certain blocking scheme at BYU that is your absolute favorite, or maybe a play that's your absolute favorite in the BYU playbook?
Oh man, honestly, any of them. Being able to be in a double team with Connor or Blake, it's always a good time. And most of the time we get the better part of the defensive lineman. So it's whenever I'm in a double team with one of those guys, it's always a good time. So.
Well, and I think that's probably just the fun part of it is you're moving a human being against their will, and that's probably a pretty thrilling feeling.
Yeah, for sure it is.
Absolutely. Kate, and can I ask you real quick about Blake? He is a guy that he's getting all kinds of stuff out there, and he was highly graded. Pro Football Focus. I don't know how familiar you are with Pro Football Focus. He was the number 1 rated offensive lineman for BYU in that USF game. You were number 2, so hey, props to you, sir. Connor was number 3, so I guess you guys all had very good performances. But Blake is a guy I think a lot of people are intrigued by simply due to the fact, and I hear it every time you guys play on every broadcast out there. Blake Freeland never played offensive line before he got to BYU. He played quarterback, tight end, defensive end, punter, name any position, not offensive line in high school.
Yeah.
And it's true, but he has made a transition to offensive line. And he got his first start in that Boise State game in 2019. You guys are coming off that loss against USF. A lot of people were down. Jaron was injured. Zach was injured. Baylor's making his first start. They insert Blake Freeland into that game. And I've got to admit, I was absolutely floored at how good he was, considering his lack of knowledge playing offensive line. So my question, Clark, is from that game when he was really, really good to now, how much better has he gotten?
Yeah, for sure. He's gotten a lot better, right? He's gotten bigger and stronger. He's been able to, master the scheme and learn, the ins and outs of the offense. I just feel like it with every, O lineman, when you're young, you're kind of just thrown into the fire and you do the best you can and you figure it out with experience. And so with that experience and lots of study and practice and whatever, he's been able to, perfect his craft and get better and, perform at a high level. So.
I've got one more question about Blake here. I'm going to use an analogy. I actually learned this story. I was actually looking on Twitter earlier this week. Do you know who Jason Peters is in the NFL?
No, I'm not sure.
So he's an offensive tackle. He's going into his 19th season, Clark, in the NFL. He's 40 years old. He was just picked up for his 19th season. He originally was signed by the Buffalo Bills as an undrafted tight end out of college. He was a 300-pound tight end at that. Like, we're talking. But Clark, the thing about this is he's 6'10". He's an absolute physical freak of nature. And I'm trying to think of who was telling this story, but they were on that Buffalo Bills team. And they said that they were working him out at tight end. He was doing some good things there on the practice squad, blah, 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 blah. But then one day they decided, you know what? He's 6'10", 300 pounds. let's throw him at offensive tackle and see what he could do. And the story, the way I read it, he essentially set up for pass blocking with like zero knowledge, according to what this story, the way they told it, and nobody could beat him one-on-one. Like, we're talking best defensive lineman in the entire world. You know the NFL. It's the cream of the crop when it comes to the best. And from that point on, he played offensive tackle. He's now made near $120 million across his 19 years in the NFL. And I'm reading this story, and I'm like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I see some parallels in some ways to the whole Blake Freeland experience at BYU. Do you see it that way based on what I just kind of told you?
Yeah, for sure. Sounds very similar, and he's done a very good job at just increasing his knowledge and strength and getting better, and he continues to perform better and better every season. So.
All right, well, Clark, we're going to finish this off as we typically do with some fun stuff. We'll get to that here in a moment. I do need to talk about our friends over at Intercap Lending real quick, though. There's a reason that no lender helps more families in the state of Utah with their mortgage needs than our friends at Intercap Lending. The reason, Intercap, they get deals done. They feature a quick and simple process. They're closing loans 2 weeks faster than the industry average. And although fast is great, the ultimate goal is to create a stress-free home loan process for you, the consumer. Steve Carter is our personal loan officer over at Intercap Lending. He'd love nothing more than to help you out along with the other hundreds of Locked On listeners he's helped so far since 2018. Intercap Lending's got 44 years of experience behind them. The best part is they're based here along the Wasatch Front, also capable of helping you nationwide in more than 40 states. So give Steve a call. He'd love nothing more than answer any questions you've got. 385-800-8528 is his number, 385-800-8528, or you can go to intercaplending.com to learn more. When you mention Locked On Cougars and Jake Hatch, and if you can mention Clark Barrington if you want to have some fun with that, you get actually a corporate rate discount from our friends at Intercap Lending. So once again, reach out to Steve now with any and all questions you might have. He'll be happy to help you out. His number, once again, 385-800-8528. Intercap Lending, NMLS number 190465. Intercap Lending is an equal housing lender. Want to remind you guys to make sure you check out the Locked On Big 12 podcast. Of course, we just talked about BYU going into the Big 12 in 2023. If you want to get up to speed on everything going on in the Big 12, Josh Neighbors has got you covered top to bottom every single day. Get it free and available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. It's a fantastic, fantastic resource. All right, closing up shop here with our third edition of the Clark Barrington Show. And Clark, okay, this is going to be an interesting question, but obviously you're facing off against Baylor. Are you a barbecue guy? Like, what is your preferred meal out there?
Preferred meal, huh?
Mm-hmm.
You can never go wrong with some brisket and some ribs, and so those would be my top two picks right there.
Okay, are we talking making your own? Or are you going over to Bam Bam's? Like, where do you?
No, I'm not making my own. I'm gonna go get it somewhere.
Okay, fair enough. Do you have a preferred spot? I know Cam Treyu up there.
Yeah, Bam Bam's pretty good. Really any of these barbecue spots up here, Bam Bam's R&R or whatever it may be. They all taste good to me. So
you're an equal opportunity barbecue connoisseur.
Exactly.
That's what we like to hear. Okay, so here's the next question for you. I know that your wife is a BYU athlete as well. So obviously, you guys, your schedules get crazy because I know this time of year you're locked up with school. You got football. You are married, as I mentioned. So when you guys, I guess, have a meal at home together, are you guys cooking together? Does one prefer to cook for the other? Like, how do you guys divvy that up?
Yeah, honestly. Most of the time, it's probably going and picking something up somewhere. Sundays is the big meal day, and whatever leftovers we'll eat throughout the week, and so kind of meal prep that way a little bit. But most of the time, if we need something quick and easy, we'll just go grab something real quick because it's what works best for our schedules right now. So.
Well, I was going to say, like, it's kind of an impromptu date night, really, in many ways. Is that right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so now with regards to in season, as I mentioned, you're a busy man. And I say this with the utmost respect. You guys are essentially doing 2 full-time jobs, in my opinion, because you have school over here. You have to do at least 12 credits, if I'm not mistaken, to stay eligible according to NCAA guidelines, and that's full-time over there on that side. Now, you're also doing football over here on the other side. So help me, help all of our listeners and viewers. How do you go about balancing all the things in your life? Are you able to balance it?
Yeah, it's interesting. Kind of have to prioritize a little bit. And use your time pretty wisely. And in the afternoon we have football from 1 to usually 6:30 ish, and so that's the time for football, along with nightly or morning little personal film studies or whatever. And then you got to find somewhere to fit in your homework, and so you just whenever you have extra time, at least for me, it's usually spent maybe with the TV on and me and my wife doing homework next to each other. And so just gotta find the time to do it, and hopefully you have enough time to do it all, but it's just how it works, I guess.
Okay. You mentioned the TV being on. Are we watching sports? Are we watching a new show? Like what's on at the Barrington household?
Yeah, usually sports.
Okay.
Whatever season it may be. When it's softball, it's softball season, softball's on the TV. When it's football season, football's on the TV. Basketball here and there, and so whatever's on, we'll throw it on and enjoy watching that. So
Awesome.
yeah.
By the way, I don't know if I've ever asked you this. Who are your pro teams in sports? Like who do you root for?
I don't know, man. I honestly am just one to enjoy the game, whoever it is. Went to Seattle Seahawks game, because I'm from Washington when I was growing up, and so always liked rooting for them. But it doesn't really matter to me. I just like watching the game. So.
Well, and I've noticed with athletes, this is not just you, exclusive to you. I've had enough conversations with athletes that, sometimes they do have teams that they may have rooted for growing up, but you guys are playing the sports that you dreamed of. And a lot of us we dreamed of playing them, but you have the opportunity to play them. And I think in many ways, it kind of takes away, like you like watching the competition rather than maybe just rooting for an individual.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's for sure. Yeah.
Okay, I got to grab one thing here. So pardon this just for a second. This is the team I want you to play for in the pros. I'm and those of you out there listening, you can't see it in video form. It's my San Francisco 49ers hat. And Clark, I wear this hat all the time. I'm a diehard Niners fan. I would love nothing more than to see you playing for the Niners one day, but who knows what happens down the
road. Yep. I'll do my best to try to make that happen.
Hey, I can respect that. I appreciate you at least just giving me a minute to think about you lining up for Kyle Shanahan in that offense, because they run that wide zone about as well as anybody in the pro ranks.
They do.
All right. Well, Clark, I think we've had enough fun for one show. Looking forward to this week against Baylor. Oh, by the way, how excited are you and your teammates to be back home at LaVell Edwards Stadium for the home opener?
Yeah, we're way excited. Cougar Nation always brings a lot of juice, when we're at away games, but it's just a whole different vibe and whole different environment when we're here at home. And so we're excited to be out in front of, all the fans and feel their energy and hopefully, bring the energy as well that night. So,
well, that's the name of the game right there. Well, Clark, thank you so much once again for your time. I look forward to catching up with you again next week. And thanks again for doing this.
Thank you.
All right, that'll do it for this edition of the Clark Barrington Show and the Locked On Cougars podcast. I want to remind you guys, make sure you check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022. It's an 8-episode extravaganza getting you ready for the NFL season. Local team experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, plus a betting angle from Lee Sterling of Locked On Bets, all combining into one ultimate NFL preview. Search for the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. For Clark, I'm Jake. Have a great rest of your day. This has been the Locked On Cougars podcast.